Allow me to begin at the beginning, no? I was born on the Isle of Santo Domingo. You call this island Haiti? My father owned a rather large plantation, and yes, my father did own slaves, but he was kinder to his slaves than most. For when the slaves of Haiti had an uprising and murdered their masters, they did not murder my father. They aided him in his escape, and he fled the island with everything of value, including his only son, me. And he took me back to France, to Nantes in the lower river valley, where my stepmother, the only mother I ever knew, she spoiled me. Every morning, she would send me into the forests and fields with a basket filled with fine edibles. And every evening, I would return home, and my basket would still be full. Of course, I had eaten the sandwiches and chocolate. And then I had collected pretty pebbles from along the shore of the stream. How many of you had a collection of stones when you were younger? And nests when they were vacant, I would bring them home. And the broken eggshells I found on the forest floor. And every feather from forest and field, and every feather I found, I would label which bird and which part of the bird. I would ask myself questions, and in this manner, nature became my greatest teacher. My father sailed around the world. He actually helped America to win our revolution. You have heard of George Washington, no? My father and George Washington were good friends. Have you had tea with Martha lately? You have maybe seen the portrait of George Washington crossing the Delaware River late at night. When he was camped at Valley Forge that cold winter so many years ago, he camped near my father's farm on Perkman Creek. French merchant ships delivered troops and supplies and ran the British blockade to help us to win our revolution. And I showed him that even as a boy, I had begun to draw the birds of France. I showed him my collection of stones and nests and eggs and feathers, every feather labeled. My father, he said, my bedroom was a veritable museum of art and science. And he wanted to encourage me. So he sent me to Paris to study with David. We spent all of our time in the basement of the museum, drawing stone statues and wooden mannequins. I wanted to draw life. And so often, I would skip class, and I would go to the park, and I would draw portraits of trees and flowers and the birds. But I guess I had skipped class one too many times, for I was evicted from art school and sent home a failure. My father was so mad at me. He felt like I needed more discipline, and so he sent me to the Naval Academy. Napoleon began waging war across Europe. And every young man, whether he wanted to go or not, was forced to march in Napoleon's army. Though my father was a military officer, maybe because he was a military officer, he knew better than most that not all wars are just. Why were we fighting? It was Napoleon's vainglorious ego. Do you know of the forced march on Russia? 1 million men lost their lives. For what purpose? For Napoleon's egomaniacal ambition. My father, though he was an officer in the Navy, did not want to lose his only son in this pointless war. And so he forged my passport, and he smuggled me from the country